Humans have been killing each other since the dawn of time. While some murders are justifiable, others appear senseless, or so we thought. Evolutionary psychologists argue that every murder could actually have a logical reason. So let's look into the origin of violence and why it was done. Oldest known homicide occurred around 430,000 years ago in northern Spain. A male known to us as Cranium 17, likely an early Neanderthal or Homo heidelbergensis, was killed by 2 blows to the head and thrown into a deep pit called the Pit of Bones. His skull fractures suggest intentional killing, making him humanity's first recorded murder victim. No written records of motives behind his killing exist. We will now look into the oldest recorded murder in our history, Harem conspiracy. Since the names are difficult to pronounce, I'll refer to Ramesses III as R III, his son Ramesses IV as R IV, his secondary queen as Queen T, and their son as P. R III, the second pharaoh of Egypt's 20th dynasty, was a pivotal figure in ancient history. Known as the last great ruler of the New Kingdom, he defended Egypt from collapse during the chaotic Late Bronze Age. His reign saw monumental achievements. He repelled invasions by the enigmatic sea peoples. He commissioned Medinet Habu, a sprawling mortuary temple near Thebes. Its walls are carved with vivid reliefs of his naval victories and land battles, immortalizing his legacy. However, his rule was marked by decline. Economic instability, bureaucratic failures, and foreign influence weakened Egypt. In his 29th year, workers at Deir el-Medina, the village of artisans building royal tombs in the Valley of the Kings, staged history's first recorded labor strike after the state failed to deliver the grain rations. This unrest exposed a crumbling administration, further destabilized by officials and servants of foreign descent who infiltrated the royal court. The assassination plot unfolded during the beautiful festival of the valley, an annual Theban celebration honoring the dead. For days, the city came alive with processions. A golden statue of the gold Amun was carried on a ceremonial boat from Karnak Temple to the necropolis across the Nile. Families offered food, flowers, and wine to their ancestors' tombs, often spending the night beside them to commune with the dead and ensure their spirits' rebirth. Music, dancing, and feasting transformed grief into joyous remembrance. In 1155 BCE, during the festival's peak, the 15th day of the second month of Shimu, R III was likely in the royal harem's western tower at Medinet Habu, a place of leisure and privacy for the pharaoh. R III's secondary wife, Queen T, masterminded a plot to kill him and install her son P as pharaoh. The conspirators included high-ranking officials such as the pharaoh's chief of chamber and the royal physicians, members of the royal harem, and court staff. While Ramesses' mummified body initially showed no visible wounds, in 2012, a CT scan led by radiologists Ashraf Salim and Sahar Salim from Cairo University uncovered a lethal throat wound, a deep slash reaching the cervical vertebrae, severing major blood vessels and airways. As anthropologist Albert Zink noted, the cut is very deep and quite large. It really goes down almost to the bone. It must have been a lethal injury. And they also uncovered severed left big toe, chopped by a heavy blade, likely an axe, shortly before death, suggesting a chaotic attack by multiple assailants. The killers exploited the festival's distractions, music, crowds, and rituals to ambush the pharaoh in his private quarters. Despite the assassination's success, the coup collapsed. R III's rightful heir, R IV, swiftly punished the conspirators. Trial records from the Turin Judicial Papyrus, a 12th century BCE document now in Turin's museum, detail executions and forced suicides, including Queen T and her son P. This is the earliest murder in history with a clear documented motive: power. The conspiracy reveals timeless themes: ambition, betrayal, and the violent struggle for status that evolutionary psychologists argue shaped human behavior for millennia. So let's look into this paper. It gives an interesting perspective on violence. It suggests that violence, whether in humans or other animals, isn't random or senseless. It's an evolved psychological mechanism. In other words, it developed slowly, shaped by countless generations of environmental pressures and survival challenges. But that raises a powerful question. What kind of inputs could have made us violent, greedy, even cruel, sometimes sometimes with no clear reason. To answer that, we need to rethink what survival actually means. Survival isn't just about staying alive today, it's also about passing on your genes, making sure your lineage continues far into the future. The long-term goal shaped the kinds of behaviors evolution rewarded, including violence. So, what drives violent behavior? The paper outlines several major causes. Number 1, access to mates. Number 2, family. And number 3, war. But first, let's look into gender differences and violence. Male and female violence often look very different. Men are more likely to show direct physical aggression, such as fights, assaults, even warfare. Women, on the other hand, tend to use indirect forms: gossip, social exclusion, manipulation, and poisoning. Why the difference? This is because throughout history, women were the primary caregivers. Getting seriously injured meant risking not just your own life, but the lives of their children. Evolution favored women who avoided physical confrontation. Men, however, can take more risks, often because their reproductive success depended on access to mates than long-term survival. Power, money, and social status isn't just luxuries, they are reproductive tools. Women who invest more time and energy into offspring are naturally more selective when choosing partners. That means men have historically competed, sometimes violently, for the resources and reputation that would make them desirable. In fact, human males are about 120 to 130% larger than females. This physical difference is a clue. It suggests that our ancestors lived in societies with effective polygyny, where some males had far more access to mates than others. For many men, risk and violence were the price of reproductive success, and modern data supports this. Studies show that young unmarried males, especially from economically disadvantaged backgrounds, are far more likely to engage in violent acts, and they have the highest mortality rates. Family. Let's look at infanticide. It may sound shocking, but females are more likely than males to commit infanticide. Why? Because raising a child is an enormous investment. If the mother believes that the child's survival or future is unlikely, she may instinctively choose to conserve her energy and resources for another chance at reproduction. It's not about cruelty, it's about evolutionary cost-benefit logic. Now let's consider domestic violence. In the ancestral world, there was no way to verify paternity. A man investing resources into a child that wasn't biologically his risks a major evolutionary failure. As a result, men evolved to be highly sensitive to signs of infidelity. When a partner's loyalty was uncertain, the stakes were enormous, both emotionally and biologically. That's why even today, jealousy is one of the most common triggers for domestic violence, whether the suspicions are real or imagined. It should also be noted that studies show that the mortality rate of a child living in the presence of a step-parent increases by 40 to 100 times those living with a genetic parent. At first glance, suicide seems like the ultimate contradiction to survival, but even self-destruction can follow evolutionary reasoning. If a person believes they have no chance of reproducing and they've become a burden to their family, their existence reduces their relatives' chance of survival and reproduction. From an evolutionary perspective, this touches on a concept called inclusive fitness. Your genetic success includes not just your children, but your nieces, nephews, and cousins. In extreme cases, ending one's own life might increase the reproductive success of a close kin. It's a tragic outcome, but it stems from the same psychological mechanisms designed to promote the survival of our genes. Studies show that men who are shown pictures of attractive women are more inclined towards warfare. War is a way to increase one's resources and gain access to mates from different locations, which makes the males more open to warfare than females. It is interesting to note that people from parasite-infested regions were more collectivist and xenophobic. This was to avoid getting infected. However, this trait resulted in people unable to cooperate and engaging in more violence. So, what does this paper tell us? That violence is not just madness or evil. It's a deeply ingrained strategy that helped our ancestors survive, compete, and reproduce. It shaped who we are and sometimes who we wish we weren't. But by understanding where these instincts come from, we can begin to manage them, to recognize when ancient impulses no longer serve us in the modern world. Because while evolution gave us the capacity for violence, it also gave us the consciousness to question it. So I have a question for you. If humanity were to begin new on a distant world, how long would it take before violence emerges? This is the topic I'm going to cover next week. So if you're interested, you can check in.